The scent of rosemary chicken filled the Hayes kitchen, blending with soft jazz from the old speaker Nathan had fixed years ago. The evening light poured through the window, warm and golden, wrapping the small suburban house in an almost cinematic calm. Emily moved carefully, her every motion deliberate. Candles on the table, the wine chilling, the small silver gift box beside Nathan's plate. Their 8th anniversary. 8 years of laughter, routines, and promises that had felt effortless. She smiled at the clock. He's late again. Emily wasn't angry. Nathan's lateness had become part of his charm, scattered, brilliant, always rushing between his design firm and home. He was the steady one, the gentle one. And even now, as she checked her reflection in the darkened oven door, she found herself whispering, "He's worth waiting for." When the door opened, Nathan's voice broke the silence. "Something smells incredible." Emily turned, her eyes lighting up. He stood in the doorway, hair damp from the rain, tie loosened, holding a small bouquet of lilies, her favorite. "You remembered," she said softly. "I always remember," he smiled, handing them over. 8 years. That's something. Dinner unfolded with laughter. They reminisced about their honeymoon, the terrible hotel, the broken air conditioner that made them sleep in the bathtub just to stay cool. Nathan laughed so hard his eyes watered. Emily reached for his hand, feeling the pulse of shared years, the kind that build quietly, without ceremony. After dessert, she pushed the small silver box toward him. "Your turn," she said. Inside, a simple leather bracelet with their initials burned into the strap. Nathan turned it over in his hands, eyes glinting. "I love it," he said. "But I didn't get you anything nearly as thoughtful." "I don't need anything," Emily replied. "You showing up is enough." But he stood anyway, disappearing into his study for a moment. When he returned, he handed her a folded paper tied with a red ribbon. "Open it later," he murmured, "when you're alone." She frowned playfully. "But planning a scavenger hunt?" He laughed, kissed her forehead, and said, "Something like that." Later, as Nathan took out the trash, Emily carried the dishes to the sink. Her mind wandered, about their early days, about how stable he made her feel. But as she passed his study, she noticed his desk drawer slightly ajar. A soft rustle of papers inside. She hesitated. It wasn't like her to pry. But curiosity is a living thing, small, hungry, whispering just one look. She tugged the drawer open. Receipts. A passport. An old Polaroid of the two of them. And at the very bottom, an envelope, cream-colored, sealed and labeled neatly in Nathan's handwriting. "For the day I can't hide anymore." Her breath caught. It looked old, almost forgotten, edges curled with time. She touched it gently, the paper warm from the lamplight. Her heart flickered with a strange mix of guilt and curiosity. Was it a letter? A confession? A secret project? Before she could open it, Nathan's footsteps echoed from the hall. Emily slipped the envelope back beneath the papers and shut the drawer. When he entered, she smiled as if nothing had happened. "You okay?" he asked, studying her face. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just cleaning up." Nathan nodded, unconvinced, but didn't press. He reached for her hand again. "I'm lucky," he whispered. "Me too," she answered. But her mind was still in the drawer, replaying those words, "For the day I can't hide anymore." As the night settled and Nathan drifted to sleep, Emily lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, a single thought looping endlessly through her mind. What could he possibly be hiding from me? For days, Emily tried to forget the envelope. She told herself it was nothing, a draft of a novel Nathan once wanted to write, a business note, a silly inside joke. Yet every time she passed his study, her eyes darted toward that drawer like a magnet drawn to something forbidden. By Thursday night, Nathan was working late. The house felt too quiet, even the clock seemed to tick louder. Emily poured a glass of wine, then another, telling herself she just wanted to tidy his desk. The same lie she'd told herself before every mistake she'd ever made. Her fingers trembled as she pulled open the drawer. The envelope was still there, but this time something else caught her eye, a small black USB drive taped to the underside of the drawer's top panel. He hid this. The thought hit like ice water. She peeled it off, turned it between her fingers. The label read in fine ink, "Past Life." For a long moment, she stared at her laptop. Then, breath shaking, she inserted the drive. The screen flickered, a folder full of images and scanned documents. Her cursor hovered over the first file, id_photo.jpg. She clicked. A woman stared back at her. Dark hair, soft features, familiar eyes. It took Emily several seconds to understand what she was seeing. The eyes were Nathan's. She clicked through the rest: medical forms, hospital intake sheets, a therapist's evaluation, each stamped with the name Natalie Harper. Then came letters of reference, college photos, and finally a certificate titled Legal Name Change 2013. Her pulse pounded in her ears. No, that's not. But it was. The dates lined up perfectly, years before she met him. Every document whispered the same truth. Nathan Hayes had once been Natalie Harper. Emily's breath came shallow. The room seemed to shrink, walls closing in. She whispered to the empty house, "Why didn't you tell me?" She slammed the laptop shut, then opened it again, desperate for a different explanation. Maybe it was a relative, a twin, something else entirely. But the evidence was merciless. She clicked a video file. Nathan's voice filled the room, younger, softer. "This is me before." The camera shook, showing a mirror, a face halfway between two lives. "One day I'll be honest with the people I love. One day I'll stop hiding." Emily pressed pause. Outside, thunder rolled over the neighborhood. Her reflection stared back at her in the dark laptop screen, pale, wide-eyed, unsteady. For the first time, she wondered how much of her marriage had been real. The memories, the first kiss, the vows, the nights he held her, all suddenly felt rewritten. She thought of the envelope marked for the day "I can't hide anymore," and felt something hot and ugly rise in her chest. The front door creaked. Nathan's footsteps echoed through the hallway. Panic surged. Emily yanked the USB from the laptop and stuffed it into her robe pocket. She closed the drawer, smoothed the desk, wiped her palms on her thighs. When Nathan stepped in, rain dripping from his hair, she forced a smile. "You're still up?" he asked. "Couldn't sleep," she said. Her voice was brittle. He kissed her cheek, lingering, unaware. "I missed you today." She turned away quickly, afraid he'd see her trembling. Nathan frowned. "You okay?" "Just tired," she murmured, backing toward the door. "Long day." He nodded slowly, but his eyes lingered on her face, as though some instinct whispered that something in her had changed. That night, Emily lay awake, the USB hidden under her pillow. Nathan slept peacefully beside her, one arm draped across her waist. She stared at his hand, the same hand that had built their life together, and felt like it belonged to a stranger. "Who are you really?" she thought. The rain outside softened to a whisper. Emily turned on her side, eyes open, heartbeat loud in her ears. She knew she wouldn't sleep until she confronted him, not tomorrow, not someday, but soon. And when she did, nothing between them would ever be the same again. The sky bled into shades of orange and violet as evening settled over the Hayes neighborhood. Through the kitchen window, Emily watched the light drain from the world, her reflection merging with the shadows. The USB drive sat beside her coffee cup, small, harmless-looking, and utterly devastating. She hadn't spoken to Nathan all day. His messages blinked unanswered on her phone, heading home soon. Should I pick up dinner? Everything okay? Everything was not okay. When the door opened, the sound startled her. Nathan stepped inside, shoulders tired, the faint smell of rain still clinging to his jacket. "Hey," he said softly, testing the air. Emily didn't turn around. "We need to talk." He froze, then nodded slowly, sensing the weight in her tone. "About what?" She turned to face him. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Who is Natalie Harper?" The silence that followed was immense, the kind that makes a room feel colder. Nathan blinked, confusion flickering before realization took over. His breath caught. "Where did you hear that name?" "I found the USB," she said. "I saw the pictures, the videos, the documents." "You lied to me, Nathan." For 8 years, you've lied. His mouth opened, then closed again. He took a hesitant step forward. Emily, please. Don't. Her hand trembled as she pointed toward him. Don't call me that. Not until you tell me who I've been sleeping beside all these years. Nathan's eyes glistened. You've been with me. The same person. I never lied about who I am, I just didn't tell you everything. That's not the same thing, she snapped. You built our entire life on something you kept buried. He swallowed hard, voice cracking. I was scared. I've lost people before. Friends, family. I didn't want to lose you too. Emily laughed bitterly, tears brimming. You didn't give me a chance to choose what I could live with. He moved closer, hands trembling. You were the first person who made me feel real. I didn't hide because I didn't love you, I hid because I did. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking, sharp, relentless. Emily's face softened, only slightly. When were you going to tell me? Nathan looked away. When I felt safe enough. Safe enough, she repeated. After 8 years of marriage? He didn't answer. Her shoulders sagged. You think I wouldn't have loved you if I knew? Nathan's eyes lifted. Would you have? The question hung in the air like smoke, unanswerable, cruel in its honesty. Emily looked at him, really looked, and saw not a stranger but the man she'd shared her life with, and yet, in that same gaze, she saw someone she'd never known. She sank into a chair, whispering, You should have trusted me. He knelt in front of her. I wanted to. Every day. But every time I tried, something stopped me. The fear never went away. Tears streaked her cheeks. You took away my choice. I know, he said quietly, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make that right. For a long moment, they sat like that, her trembling, him silent, two people drowning in truths that came too late. Then, softly, she said, I need space. I can't look at you right now. Nathan nodded. I'll go. He stood, his face pale but calm, and walked to the door. Before stepping out, he turned. I never meant to hurt you, Emily. I swear I didn't. She didn't answer. When the door closed, she sat in the dim kitchen, the bracelet she'd given him glinting faintly on the counter. It looked like a piece of someone else's life. Hours later, she walked into his study, opened the drawer again, and stared at the sealed envelope. For the day I can't hide anymore. She thought of tearing it open, but stopped herself. Not yet. The truth had already broken enough things for one night. Instead, she sat on the floor, knees to her chest, listening to the storm gathering outside. For the first time since she met Nathan, she felt utterly alone, suspended between love and revulsion, between the man she knew and the one she didn't. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, echoing through the house. Emily whispered into the silence, What else haven't you told me? Emily didn't sleep that night. The storm outside had faded, but its echo lived inside her, in the quiet hum of the refrigerator, in the soft creak of the floorboards that used to feel like home. Nathan's absence was almost tangible, like a ghost pacing the halls. By morning, she couldn't hold the secret anymore. She needed to hear another voice, someone to tell her she wasn't losing her mind. She called Rachel. Her best friend's voice was groggy but warm. It's 7 a.m. What's wrong? Emily hesitated. Can you come over? Within half an hour, Rachel arrived in sweatpants and concern. Emily looked fragile, pale, red-eyed, gripping a mug she hadn't touched. What happened? Rachel asked softly. Emily opened her laptop, hands trembling. She inserted the USB drive and turned the screen toward her friend. Watch. Minutes passed in silence as Rachel's expression shifted. Curiosity, then confusion, then something else entirely. When the final video ended, she leaned back, exhaling sharply. Jesus, Emily. I didn't know, Emily whispered. 8 years. He never told me. Rachel's brows furrowed. He used to be a woman? Emily flinched. Don't say it like that. I'm just trying to understand, Rachel said quickly. That's a lot to hide. You have every right to be furious. Emily nodded, though her stomach twisted. Furious, yes. But beneath it she also felt grief. The man she loved hadn't died. Yet she mourned him all the same. Rachel's tone softened. You can't keep this bottled up. Talk to someone. A counselor, a pastor, anyone. I don't want people knowing, Emily said sharply. It's private. Rachel sighed. You can trust me. But, secrets like this? They eat you alive. Later that day, Emily sat alone again, Rachel gone but her words lingering. She replayed Nathan's confession in her mind, his voice trembling, eyes wet, saying, I hid because I loved you. The words wouldn't stop echoing. She wanted to hate him, but she couldn't. Not fully. It was that gray space, between love and disgust, that was tearing her apart. That evening, Nathan called. His voice came through the phone, quiet and hesitant. Emily, please. Let me come home. I can explain everything, properly this time. There's nothing left to explain, she said coldly. Then just let me talk. Face to face. She paused. His voice carried exhaustion, the kind that comes after years of hiding. I need time, she said finally. I need to think. Okay, he murmured. Just, don't hate me. Emily's throat tightened. I don't hate you. But when the call ended, she stared at the silent phone, realizing she didn't know if that was true. As night fell again, she sat by the window, listening to the hum of distant cars and her own shallow breathing. The neighborhood was dark except for one house down the street, Rachel's. In that faint glow, Emily saw a shape move past the curtain. For a moment, she wondered if Rachel was on the phone, telling someone what she'd learned. The thought sent a cold ripple through her chest. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, Please, don't say anything. But the next morning, when she walked into the grocery store, she felt it, the eyes. Two women at the counter whispered and glanced her way. A neighbor's polite smile faltered when their gazes met. By afternoon, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. Someone sent my old photo to one of my clients. I think they know. Her hands trembled as she read it. Rachel's words echoed back. Secrets like that don't just stay secrets. They rot people. Emily sank into a chair, the realization spreading like ice through her veins. She hadn't just lost control of her marriage, she'd lost control of the truth itself. Outside, the sun slipped behind gray clouds, the house dimming into shadows. Emily sat in the gloom, whispering to herself, What have I done? The waiting room smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Nathan sat hunched on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped tight, the band of Emily's leather bracelet biting into his wrist. Every sound, the ticking clock, the shuffle of papers, the receptionist typing, felt magnified. When the office door opened, a soft voice said, Nathan Hayes. He stood, nodded once, and followed Dr. Layton into the small room lined with books, certificates, and muted gray walls. The chair across from her desk seemed too comfortable, too open, a place for people who still trusted themselves. Thank you for coming, she said. What brings you here today? Nathan hesitated. I ruined everything. Start there, she replied gently. He took a slow breath. My wife found out about my past, that I transitioned years ago. I always told myself I'd tell her when it felt safe, when I knew she'd understand. But I never did. Now she can barely look at me. Dr. Layton folded her hands. And what do you feel right now? Shame, he said. And fear. Mostly fear. Fear of what? That I'm losing her. And that maybe I deserve to. The therapist studied him quietly, her pen motionless. When you decided not to tell her, what were you protecting? Myself, Nathan admitted. But I told myself it was for her, to keep things normal. She always said she wanted a husband who was strong, who didn't make life complicated. I thought if I stayed silent, I could be that man. Dr. Layton leaned back, eyes kind but steady. You know silence isn't strength, right? It's just another kind of prison. Nathan's lips trembled into a faint smile. I've been in one my whole life then. Outside, rain began to patter against the window, soft and rhythmic. Nathan stared at it as though the sound itself was confessing something he couldn't. Meanwhile, across town, Emily sat on her bed, scrolling through her phone. She'd deleted most of her social media accounts after the gossip started, after the whispers at the grocery store and the sideways glances at work. But that didn't stop people from talking. Her stomach churned as she opened a message from an unknown number. Guess your husband forgot to mention he used to be someone else. Poor you. Emily's breath caught. She dropped the phone as though it burned her. She blamed Rachel at first. Who else could have told anyone? But then she realized secrets have their own gravity. Once released, they fall fast and hard. Her reflection in the mirror startled her. Hollow eyes, hair unkempt, the faint outline of a woman unraveling. You destroyed everything, she whispered, but she didn't know if she was speaking to Nathan or herself. Back in the therapist's office, Nathan's session was ending. Dr. Layton handed him a small card. I'd like you to write a letter, she said. Not to Emily, to yourself. To Natalie. Say what you never allowed yourself to say. Nathan turned the card over in his hand, unsure whether to laugh or cry. You think that helps? It helps you stop running, she said softly. He nodded, pocketing the card. Before leaving, he hesitated at the door. Do you think some people can't forgive what they don't understand? Dr. Layton met his eyes. Understanding comes after forgiveness. Never before. That night, Nathan sat in his car outside their darkened house, the windshield streaked with rain. He saw the faint light of the bedroom window, Emily's silhouette pacing inside. He wanted to go in, to tell her everything he'd never said. But his hands stayed clenched around the steering wheel, knuckles white. Inside, Emily stood still, sensing him even through the glass. For a brief second, their eyes almost met, his shadow against the rain, her outline against the light. Neither moved. Nathan started the car and drove off into the dark, headlights vanishing down the empty street. Emily turned away, whispering to herself, if he thinks he can just disappear, he's wrong. By morning, the storm had passed, but its echo lingered. Rainwater pooled along the sidewalks of Brookhaven, a neat little suburb where gossip spread faster than weeds. The sun returned like nothing had happened, but every window, every curtain, seemed to hide a whisper. It started at Henderson's grocery. A woman in a floral blouse leaned close to the cashier, lowering her voice. Did you hear about Emily Hayes? Her husband isn't who he says he is. The cashier blinked. What do you mean? The woman smirked. Let's just say, she's been living with a stranger. By noon, the story had taken shape, warped, exaggerated, and repeated until it was barely recognizable. Nathan wasn't just trans anymore. He was hiding from the law, using another name, lying about everything. By dusk, he was a villain. Emily stepped out of her house to collect the mail, only to find the silence heavier than any insult. Neighbors who once waved now looked away. A mother pulled her child closer as she passed. Even the old man next door, who'd helped them build their fence, refused to meet her eyes. Inside, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Dozens of notifications, messages from coworkers and acquaintances pretending to be concerned. Is it true? You poor thing, I can't believe he tricked you. Some people are just unnatural. Emily dropped the phone onto the couch and covered her face. God, make it stop, she whispered. Across town, Nathan sat in his car outside a laundromat, scrolling through an anonymous post on the local Facebook group. It was titled, The Real Story Behind Nathan Hayes. His picture, one from years ago when he still went by Natalie, was attached. The caption read, This is who he really is. Imagine what else he's hiding. His throat tightened. He'd expected anger, but not this, not the way strangers dissected his life, turning his truth into a spectacle. He texted Emily. Nathan, please don't read anything online. Emily, too late. He stared at her reply until the words blurred. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. Back at the Hayes home, Emily's mother, Margaret, had arrived unannounced. She moved through the kitchen with her usual air of disapproval. I told you he was too secretive, she said, pouring tea as though it were proof. Men like that always are. Emily's jaw clenched. He's not dangerous, Mom. Margaret gave her a pitying look. Then why does everyone think he is? Emily pushed back from the table, the chair scraping the tile. Because people like to destroy what they don't understand. She left the room before her mother could answer. Upstairs, in the quiet of their bedroom, she opened the drawer where Nathan kept his letters, notes he'd written over the years, full of gentle jokes and love. She ran her fingers over the ink, realizing how little she truly knew about the man she'd married, not because he'd lied, but because she'd never asked. That night the doorbell rang. Emily froze. Through the peephole, she saw two men, one in plain clothes, one in uniform. "Mrs. Hayes," the officer said when she opened the door. "We received a report about threats made online against your husband. Do you know where he is?" Her heartbeat thudded. "No, not right now." The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "If you hear from him, tell him to stay somewhere safe. Things are getting ugly." After they left, Emily stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the empty street. The night air was heavy, almost metallic. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. She didn't know that Nathan had parked just 2 blocks away, watching their house from the shadows. He saw the police leave, saw her silhouette framed in the doorway, fragile, tired, yet still standing. He whispered into the quiet, "I'm sorry, I just need a little time." But time was the one thing he no longer had. Because as he pulled onto the main road, a dark SUV slipped from the curb behind him, headlights off, following. The silence between Emily and Nathan had become its own language, brittle, cold, and exhausting. 3 days had passed since the police visit. 3 days since Nathan disappeared without warning, leaving behind a half-packed duffel and a note that said only, "I'm sorry. I need to figure out who I am before I can face what I've done." The house felt emptier than ever. The kettle whistled in the mornings, but she didn't pour the tea. The clock ticked, but time no longer meant anything. Every sound seemed to echo against the ache that filled the walls. She had spent their marriage building routines, little rituals that gave her comfort. Sunday pancakes, Friday movies, texts that read, "Home soon." But now, each ritual felt like a lie, a ghost she could no longer touch. On the 4th night, she sat at the kitchen table, the letter crumpled in her hand. Her mother's voice still echoed from their last argument. "He abandoned you, Emily. You have to accept that." "He didn't abandon me," Emily had said quietly. "He's lost." Then let him stay lost. Now she wasn't so sure. Nathan had been spotted. Someone posted in the local community group again. A picture of him at a gas station off Route 12, looking hollow-eyed, the caption reading, "Still pretending to be something he's not." The comments below were vicious. The digital world had turned into a courtroom without walls, and the verdict was already in. Emily tried to call him. Straight to voicemail. She texted once more. "Emily, please come home. We can face this together." Delivered. Not seen. The next morning, she met with Detective Hall, the same officer who had visited before. His expression was careful, neutral, the way people looked at victims or suspects. "Mrs. Hayes, has your husband contacted you?" She shook her head. "No. But I think he's scared." Hall nodded. "He should be. Someone's been following him. We found tire tracks matching the SUV you mentioned. We're not ruling out a possible threat." Emily's breath caught. "He's in danger?" Hall's tone darkened. "Everyone involved in this rumor storm is. Online hate has a way of turning into real hate." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She wandered into Nathan's studio, the one room she'd avoided since he left. The air still smelled faintly of cedar and oil paint. On the easel stood an unfinished portrait of her. Her smile half-painted, her eyes incomplete. Tears welled in her eyes. She touched the canvas lightly, whispering, "You should have finished it." Then her phone buzzed. A message. "Nathan, I'm sorry. I'm at the cabin." Her pulse quickened. The cabin, their old weekend retreat, 2 hours north in the woods. A place they hadn't visited since the engagement. It was where he had first said he loved her, where she had thought their life began. Without thinking, she packed a small bag, keys trembling in her hand. Margaret called as she was locking the door. "Emily, where are you?" "I just need to see him." Her mother's voice rose in panic. "Don't go. Please. You don't know what state he's in." But Emily ended the call. Rain had begun again as she drove. The road was slick, headlights reflecting off the wet asphalt like shards of glass. She replayed every memory, every word, every time she had looked at Nathan and seen a stranger instead of the man she loved. When she finally reached the cabin, the windows were dark. No lights. No movement. Only the sound of rain hitting the roof like whispers from the trees. She stepped out of the car, her breath fogging in the cold night air. "Nathan?" she called softly. No answer. Only the groan of the wind. Inside, the air was thick with damp and silence. A single mug sat on the table, still warm. Her heart thudded. "Nathan?" Then came a sound, faint, from the back room. Footsteps. Emily turned, eyes wide, just as the door creaked open. A shadow stepped into the hallway. But it wasn't Nathan. Emily froze where she stood, her hands still hovering near the light switch. The figure in the doorway took one cautious step forward. A tall man in a damp jacket, water dripping from his hair, his face pale under the porch light filtering through the window. "Don't scream," he said softly, raising his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her voice trembled. "Who are you?" "My name's Daniel Mercer. I'm a friend of Nathan's." "I used to be." Emily's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" "I came because he called me," Daniel said. He sounded desperate. Said he thought someone was watching him. Then the line went dead. Rain hammered against the roof, filling the silence between them. Emily's pulse quickened. "You're lying." Nathan wouldn't just. Daniel reached into his jacket, pulling out a phone. "You tell me." On the cracked screen was a single text thread from Nathan Hayes. The most recent message read, "If anything happens, find Emily. Tell her the truth about what I did." Her stomach twisted. "What truth?" Daniel hesitated, eyes flicking toward the back window as thunder rolled across the hills. "You really don't know, do you?" Emily's throat tightened. "I know enough." He studied her face for a moment, then sighed. "Nathan wasn't running from you, Emily. He was running from someone else, from something that started long before you met him." She folded her arms. "Stop talking in riddles. What are you saying?" Daniel looked away, his jaw tightening. Nathan used to work at a medical clinic before he transitioned. One of the doctors there, Dr. Pearson, found out about his identity and tried to use it against him. Blackmail threats, it got ugly. Nathan exposed him anonymously online, and the man lost everything. A few months later, he was found dead. Suicide. At least, that's what the report said. Emily's eyes widened. "You're saying Nathan was involved?" Daniel nodded slowly. "That's what he feared. He thought Pearson's family or someone connected was coming for him. That's why he changed his name, moved here, built a new life." The weight of his words hung heavy in the cabin. Emily could barely breathe. "And the folder I found, the photos, the letters. Those were his attempts to keep record," Daniel said. "Evidence in case anyone ever tried to find him." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating Daniel's uneasy expression. Emily looked toward the door. "Where is he now?" "I wish I knew," Daniel said. "But I think whoever's following him already does." A noise shattered the stillness, the crunch of gravel outside. Both of them turned toward the sound. Headlights swept across the front window, bright and cold. Daniel moved to the curtain and peered out. "It's a car. Dark SUV." Emily's voice barely escaped her lips. "The same one from before?" He nodded once. "Stay here." Before she could stop him, Daniel slipped out the back door. The wind howled as it slammed shut behind him. Emily stood frozen in the dim light, heart racing. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, a single gunshot cracked through the night. She screamed and stumbled back, knocking over a chair. Rain poured harder, drumming against the roof like a warning. She grabbed the phone from the table, hands shaking, and dialed Nathan's number again. No answer. But this time, the phone on the counter lit up, Nathan's name flashing on the screen. The call was coming from inside the cabin. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she turned toward the dark hallway, the same place Daniel had first appeared. "Nathan," she whispered. Silence. Then, from the shadows, a faint vibration buzzed again. Closer now, steady, relentless. Emily stepped forward, every nerve screaming. The phone stopped ringing. A soft ding replaced it, a new voicemail. She pressed play. Nathan's voice, ragged and low, filled the room. Emily, if you're hearing this, they found me. Don't trust anyone who says they're helping. Not even Daniel. The message cut off mid-breath. The forest around the cabin was a dark, oppressive mass, the trees casting long, jagged shadows in the glow of the blood-red moon. Rain had stopped hours ago, leaving the air damp and metallic. Emily's boots crunched against the wet leaves as she edged toward the back door, phone clutched tightly, Nathan's last message replaying in her mind. Don't trust anyone who says they're helping. Not even Daniel. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. She could still smell the lingering gunpowder, faint now but unmistakable. Daniel's sudden disappearance after the shot had left her disoriented, unsure of what was real and what was imagined. Inside, the cabin was eerily silent. Chairs were overturned, the mug Nathan had left still warm but shattered in two on the floor. She stepped over it, every muscle tensed, every nerve alert. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Look under the floorboards. It's time you know everything. Emily froze. Her eyes darted to the living room, then to the hallway. The floorboards beneath the rug were warped, faint scratches along the edges as if something had been moved repeatedly. She dropped to her knees and pried at the first board. It resisted, groaning. When it finally lifted, a small wooden box rested inside, wrapped in a cloth. Her fingers shook as she untied the knot and lifted the lid. Inside were letters, photographs, and a small, blood-stained journal. Emily's stomach churned. She pulled out the first page, scanning the handwriting, Nathan's, but older, different, more jagged. They won't let me live as myself. Every move I make is watched. If I survive this, she must know the truth. Emily deserves more than lies. A sudden noise made her whirl around. The back window rattled. Moonlight caught the figure standing outside, Daniel, soaked, face pale, eyes frantic. Emily, you shouldn't be here, he shouted, stepping into the cabin, slipping slightly on the wet floor. Why did you send me the message? She yelled. Why lead me here? I didn't. Daniel's voice cracked. Someone else is in the woods. They know Nathan is here. They've been following him since the clinic, since Pearson. Emily's chest tightened. Who is following him? Daniel swallowed, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to appear at any second. I don't know their names, but they're dangerous. Pearson's associates, people who never forgave him for ruining that man's life. And now they want revenge. Her eyes landed on the journal again. Emily picked it up, flipping rapidly. Among the entries, one sentence stabbed her like a blade. If Emily ever finds this, she must know, I did what I had to do. Not everything has a hero. Her hands trembled, and she stumbled backward, almost dropping the box. Nathan, what did you do? Daniel's face fell. It wasn't supposed to get this far. He wanted to disappear, to protect you, but the threats followed him here. He called me for help, but by the time I got to the cabin, someone else had beaten me. A branch snapped outside. Emily turned just in time to see a dark SUV slide silently along the edge of the clearing. Two figures emerged, tall, silent. They moved with intent, weapons glinting under the blood-red moonlight. Emily's voice shook. We have to get out, now. Daniel grabbed her arm. No, not without him. Nathan left clues for you. He's in the cellar. That's where he always hid when it got too dangerous. The two of them crept toward the trapdoor at the back of the cabin. Emily's heart pounded so loudly she was certain the intruders could hear it. Daniel lifted the hatch, revealing a narrow wooden staircase leading down into darkness. A faint light glimmered at the bottom. Nathan's voice, hoarse, urgent, called out, Emily, it's time you saw everything and understood why I did what I did. Emily swallowed, gripping Daniel's hand, the blood moon casting red shadows across her face. She took the first step down into the cellar, not knowing that the truths waiting below would shatter the last remnants of her world. The forest above was silent once more, but the cabin held a storm that had only just begun. The fluorescent lights in the police interrogation room buzzed like a swarm trapped in glass. Nathan sat in the steel chair, wrists cuffed, eyes hollow yet alert. The blood moon outside had long disappeared, but the night's events lingered in every shadow. Emily entered behind Detective Hall, her face pale, lips pressed tight. She had spent the drive here replaying the cellar scene, Nathan's voice echoing through the darkness. "Emily, it's time you saw everything and understood why I did what I did." The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Nathan's gaze lifted as she approached, a flicker of recognition and guilt crossing his features. "You're safe," she said quietly, though her voice trembled. "But I need answers. All of them." Nathan exhaled, shoulders sagging. "But I didn't want it to come to this." Detective Hall pulled out a chair, sliding it across the floor until he sat opposite Nathan. "We're here to understand what happened tonight," he said. "Start from the beginning. Who is following you?" Nathan swallowed. "Pearson's associates. People who blamed me for his death. They found me eventually. That's why I left, why I ran." Emily's hands clenched into fists. "And Daniel? Why did he lie?" Nathan's eyes flicked toward her. "He didn't lie. He told you what he thought was true. But he didn't know the full story. I kept some things secret to protect you, to make sure you weren't hurt by what I did." Her voice broke. "What you did? Nathan, tell me." "I exposed Dr. Pearson years ago," Nathan admitted, voice low. "I used evidence of his illegal practices anonymously. He lost everything. But after he died, I feared anyone connected to him might seek revenge. That's why I hid my past from you, Emily, and why I moved here." Emily's chest tightened. "You didn't trust me. You let people threaten your life, and you left me in the dark. I didn't know who to trust, not even Daniel fully. I thought if you didn't know, you'd be safe." The detective leaned forward. "And the blood moon night? The gunshot?" Nathan's hands trembled in his lap. "Daniel arrived first. He thought he was protecting me. The intruders, they were already inside. One shot was fired, but no one was hit. I was in the cellar the whole time. I called Emily to warn her, but the chaos. I couldn't reach her before she came." Emily swallowed hard. Her mind replayed every terrifying moment. The shadows, the dark SUV, the crack of the gun. "So, it was real? You weren't imagining them?" Nathan shook his head. "They're still out there. I think they know we were at the cabin. That's why I came here voluntarily. If the police know everything, maybe they'll be safe." The silence between them was heavy. Emily's eyes scanned his face, the same man she married, yet someone unrecognizable. Lines of fear, guilt, and exhaustion were etched deeply. "I loved you," she whispered. "Even with the secrets, even with the lies. But why did it have to come to this?" Nathan's voice was barely audible. "Because some truths are too dangerous to be hidden, and some lies are too heavy to carry alone. I wanted to protect you, and I failed." Detective Hall cleared his throat. "Nathan, Emily, I need a timeline. Everything from the day she found the folder to tonight." Nathan nodded slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I'll tell you everything. Every detail. No omissions." Emily sank into the chair opposite him, fingers still trembling. She felt the weight of every unanswered question pressing against her chest. She had followed him into darkness, into lies, into terror, and now, finally, she would hear the story in full. The overhead light flickered once. Outside, rain began again, tapping softly against the window like a warning. Nathan leaned back, taking a shuddering breath. "It starts with Natalie Harper, and how she became me." Emily sat in the dimly lit living room, the envelope trembling in her hands. It had arrived that morning, slipped under the door without a sound, and bore Nathan's familiar handwriting. No stamp. No return address. Just her name, written in precise, looping letters. She hesitated. The events of the blood moon night, the cellar, Daniel's frantic warnings, Nathan's revelations in the interrogation room, they all crowded her mind. Her fingers itched to open it, yet fear rooted her to the spot. Finally, she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded carefully, almost ceremoniously. Her heart pounded as she unfolded it, revealing the words Nathan had written in his jagged, unmistakable script. Emily, if you are reading this, I am no longer able to speak to you in person. The threats I tried to outrun have found their way to you. I never wanted this, but everything I built, every lie, every secret, has led us here. You deserve the truth. Not fragments, not shadows, but everything. She paused, breath caught, tracing the letters with trembling fingers. I'm not just Nathan Hayes. I was Natalie Harper. I transitioned because I could not continue to live as someone I was not. I loved you before I could explain. I married you knowing the risks, knowing the shadows of my past would always chase me. I hid my history because I feared it would destroy you, destroy us, destroy the fragile life we created. Emily's eyes stung. She had believed she understood fear, betrayal, and love, but now she realized the depths she had only glimpsed. Years ago, Dr. Pearson discovered my truth at the clinic. He attempted to blackmail me, threatened exposure, and tried to control my life. I acted in desperation, exposing his criminal activity anonymously. When he died, I thought the danger ended. But it didn't. There are people who will not forgive. People who stalk, who manipulate, who kill. I wanted to shield you from this darkness, but I failed. My love for you blinded me to the consequences. Her hands shook. Emily sank to the sofa, the letter trembling between them. He had risked everything to protect her, yet it had nearly destroyed them both. Daniel tried to help. I trusted him with fragments of the truth, but he couldn't see the full picture. He meant well, but the danger is closer than either of you realized. When the gun was fired at the cabin, I hid in the cellar. I called you because I knew you would follow, because I trusted you to survive this, because I believed in us. If you are reading this, you followed, and that means you are brave. Too brave, perhaps. Emily's lips quivered. Nathan, she whispered, I'm leaving town. I cannot stay here, not with the threats, not with the eyes watching. I am alive, but only barely. I hope this letter explains what my words could not. I need you to live, Emily. I need you to forgive me, not for what I did, but for the lies that were meant to keep you safe. I will always love you, in ways you may never understand, in ways I cannot prove. Tears spilled over, tracing her jawline. The letter ended with a small, sketched heart, half filled in black ink. A token of the man she married, the person she had loved, and the secret he had carried to the grave. Emily pressed the paper to her chest, rocking back and forth. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rush of traffic. She thought of the cellar, of Daniel's warnings, of the dark SUV that had prowled the woods, and the terror that had once seemed unstoppable. And then, slowly, a sense of understanding began to settle over her, bitter, painful, but real. Nathan had risked everything for her. Every secret, every lie, every fragment of danger had been in his twisted version of protection. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back in its envelope, and sat staring at the window. The world outside was ordinary, suburban, innocent. A stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed their lives. A knock at the door startled her. She froze, heart hammering. Outside, a figure stood in the shadows, silhouetted by the streetlight. Emily hesitated, then stepped forward. She knew one thing with certainty: the story was not yet over. Emily's hands still trembled as she approached the door. The figure outside remained motionless, cloaked in shadow. Her mind raced, flashing back to the blood moon, the cellar, the gunshot, the letter. Every step she had taken over the past weeks had been a descent into darkness, and now, perhaps, it was time to face the end. She opened the door slowly. The figure stepped forward. It was Detective Hall, face grim but careful. "Emily," he said softly, "you need to hear this before you make any decisions." Inside, Emily nodded, gesturing for him to come in. She closed the door, locking it behind him, her heartbeat loud enough to drown out the distant hum of traffic. "We found Nathan," Hall began, his eyes meeting hers. "He left the town before the threats could reach him. He's alive, Emily. He's in a safe house, under witness protection. He asked me to tell you, Hall paused, searching for words, that he's sorry. And that he still loves you. Emily felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Relief, grief, rage, longing. The years of fear and betrayal pressed down on her chest like a weight she couldn't lift. She sank into a chair. So, it's over? She whispered. Hall shook his head gently. Not entirely. You've both been through something extreme. The trauma, the lies, the constant threat, it doesn't disappear overnight. You'll need time. Therapy. And honesty, total honesty. Nathan has promised that. Emily stared out the window. The suburban street bathed in the early morning light. The world felt ordinary again, almost cruelly so, after the chaos of the blood moon night. The shadows of the past weeks lingered, but she realized something vital. She had survived. And in surviving, she had learned the depth of human complexity. Love tangled with fear, secrecy mingling with protection, danger always lurking beneath the surface. A soft knock at the door startled her. She turned to see Margaret, her mother, holding a thermos of coffee, eyes rimmed with red from worry. I wanted to make sure you were alive, Margaret said. I didn't know what to do. Emily smiled faintly. We're alive, both of us. And maybe that's enough for now. They sat together, the quiet warmth of the kitchen slowly seeping into Emily's bones. She thought about the letter, about Nathan's voice echoing through the cellar, about the dangers they had both faced. She realized that closure was not about forgetting or forgiving completely. It was about understanding, surviving, and reclaiming some fragment of normal life. Later, Emily called Daniel. She had questions, many questions, but she wanted answers from the man who had tried, however clumsily, to protect Nathan. Yes. Daniel's voice was tentative. It's Emily, she said. I want to understand everything. All of it. And I think you do too. We need to start closing this chapter. There was a pause, then a soft exhale. You're right. We need to finish it properly. Hours passed as they pieced together the fragmented story, the threats, the blackmail, the near-death experiences, the secrets Nathan had carried. Every revelation was painful, yet necessary. By the time the sun set, Emily felt a strange calmness settle over her. She understood, at last, why Nathan had made the choices he had. She poured herself a cup of tea, the steam curling like soft smoke in the dim kitchen. The world outside continued its quiet suburban rhythm. Children playing, neighbors mowing lawns, cars drifting down familiar streets. Emily's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He's safe. And so are you. This ends now. She smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in weeks. She didn't need to know who sent it. It didn't matter. The chaos, the lies, the terror, it had run its course. Emily looked toward the window again, the sky painted with deep purples and fading reds from the setting sun. For the first time in weeks, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself. Peace. The past would always haunt her, but the present, the small, ordinary moments, the quiet understanding, was hers to reclaim. She had survived love, betrayal, danger, and the revelation of terrible secrets. And she would survive what came next, too. Some doors could never fully close. But some letters, some truths once faced, could finally allow the soul to breathe. Emily lifted the mug to her lips, inhaling the warmth, letting the world seep back into her bones. Somewhere, Nathan was alive, hiding, waiting, and for now, that was enough.